This freeze-dried hot chocolate is super easy. It doesn't take too many ingredients and it rehydrates amazingly well. You'll want to start with 6 ounces of bittersweet chocolate chips, 6 ounces of milk chocolate chips. I like to use the Ghirardelli. You're going to need 3 cups of milk. I like using 1%, and then 3 cups of half and half, and just a 1/4 teaspoon of some fine sea salt. So we'll go ahead and get this going on the stovetop. To make the hot chocolate on the stovetop, I'm going to just turn this a little bit over low. It doesn't need to be super high, not over medium. You don't want to scald your milk. I'm going to add both of my chocolate chips into my pan and just 1 cup of the milk. And the reason for that is I want to go ahead and get this nice and melted before I add more milk, so that way it's a nice consistency without chocolate chunks floating in it. So we'll go ahead and get this melted. Using a spatula, we're going to go ahead and stir this pretty continuously to help that chocolate melt evenly and really get a nice, thick, creamy chocolate base to start our hot chocolate. Once you get to this stage, there's still some chunks in here, and I have some thick chocolate on the tip of my spatula here. So I'm going to keep going until I can get most of that melted off. And this is just a little smoother, meaning that everything is melted evenly, not just broken apart. The bittersweet chocolate tends to not get quite as smooth as the milk chocolate. So once you get it to the point where most of the chocolate isn't sticking and you just have a few darkish specks on your spatula there, you're ready to go ahead and add the rest of the milk, the salt, measure out your half and half, and get the 3 cups of half and half added as well. So I'll go ahead and dump in my salt, which I pre-measured. I've got my 2 cups of milk right here, but now I need to measure out 3 cups of half and half, which I can leave this on low as I do that. I've added the half and half. I have the milk in here, the salt. I, in the past, have also done things like add peppermint or vanilla extracts to this to just give it a little different flavor. I'm curious if any of you have ever added chili powder. That's something I've not tried yet. I think I need to make a single cup and try it out before I freeze dry a batch and make sure that I like that with the chili powder in it. Curious, what have you tried with your hot chocolates? If you like your hot chocolate a little bit sweeter, you may also wish to add more milk chocolate and to decrease the amount of bittersweet chocolate that you've put in here. One thing I have learned in the process of learning how to freeze dry hot chocolate is that larger molds with less hot chocolate in them to give you a nice thin puck is a lot better than having a thick puck. It's really hard to get the middle of that freeze dried well. I'll get a 1/4 cup of hot chocolate out of here and then put this in my mold space, and it is not full. It's got about a pinky's worth of nail space down to the hot chocolate. This is going to make it a whole lot easier to get these to my freezer. It's just a whole lot nicer to have larger molds and not fill them all the way than to have a mold that simply holds a 1/4 cup. And now as you're moving stuff, you have to be careful that it's not spilling everywhere. This is a game changer to buy a larger mold and not fill it all the way. I have found the 1/4 cup puck to be about the perfect size where it freeze dries through the middle just fine without it taking a ton of extra dry time because it's too thick. So we'll go ahead and finish getting all of these trayed up. I am also using my double stacker trick. So when I put these on, since those molds are a little taller than my trays, there's space to help those freeze better. And then I'll keep on going on with filling up my next tray. I was able to get exactly 3 trays with 10 1/4 cup servings per tray on this. This is my large tray. So I have 30 1/4 cup pucks. So we'll go ahead and get these frozen solid and out of the molds before we put them in the freeze dryer. My hot chocolate's been drying for about 28 hours now, including about 8 extra hours of dry time. I had, however, rotated my trays and then put on more extra dry time. So even though I normally have 24 hours of extra dry time, that's not accurate since I canceled, released the pressure valve, and then hit more dry time. So let's go ahead and get this out and we'll do a taste test. Our thermometer out on our covered deck currently tells us it's negative 6.7 degrees Fahrenheit outside. And that's been warming up. It was like 18 below this morning, wind chills anywhere from 30 to 45 below zero. It's cold. So let's go rehydrate some hot chocolate. Don't let the sunshine fool you. It is bitterly cold out there. I've put 5 pucks of my hot chocolate into a mug, and that'll be about 1 1/4 cups of hot chocolate. So that's what I need to add is 1 1/4 cups of water because each puck was 1/4 cup of hot chocolate to begin with. I have my instant tea kettle I'm going to turn on. And as soon as that boils, we will measure this out. I am simply going to start with 1 cup of water, just because you can always add more, but you can't pull it back out. And I love watching how this just dissolves right away as you add the water. You're still going to want to stir it up. But this is where this is very different from those freeze-dried hot cocoa balls, as this was never powdered to begin with. So you're not going to have that thick powdered consistency when you add it back in here. It dissolves very, very quickly because this was actual hot chocolate, not powder. I'm going to go ahead and let this sit for a minute or two. 1, it's boiling hot water. It's too hot to drink. And 2, that's just going to help any of the little pieces to finish hydrating and fall into the liquid instead of being a separate little chunk of flavor in there. So we'll let this sit and then we'll do a taste test. I'm going to go ahead and test this with just the 1 cup of water added. If this is too thick, too strong, too sweet, I can add like an ice cube to it. It'll do 2 things. 1, it'll help bring that temperature down to make it easier to drink and add that extra moisture to thin this out a little bit. But let's go ahead and see how it tastes. That's really good. So I like mine a little sweeter. I didn't add any sugar to this, and there's that bittersweet chocolate. So I'm not surprised that I don't want to add the extra water in, because to me this is very good. But again, if it was too sweet, you could add a little more water to bring that down. And that is a whole lot easier than making this on the stove when I'm ready for a cup of hot cocoa after clearing the driveway, feeding the birds, whatever it is I'm doing out in this extreme cold. This is wonderful. You can find this recipe and over 350 more recipes like it at freezedryingcookbook.com. Thank you for joining me on Adventures in Freeze Drying. We'll see you next time.